Much as we love our cat companions, dogs and humans are an inseparable combination, with canine love and loyalty often an enduring spiritual bond. Here we look at the otherworldly devotion of Sutty Dog and Peaches to their owners, while Anne's dog Rocky suddenly becomes highly attuned to a spiritual presence. Thanks to our viewers for sending these personal accounts. Satty Dog. John Sutty in the United Kingdom has written to us about his family's strong bond and amazing communication with their small Scottish terrier named Satty Dog. The dog was in fact the pet of his daughter, Dulcie Jane, and the two were very close, with Satty Dog sleeping in Dulcie's room and following her around the house. For years the pair were the best of pals, often playing together in the back garden. As time passed and Dulcie grew up, she still did play with her Satty Dog, but of course also began making other friends. As Dulcie began bringing her new friends home, the whole family noticed how protective little Satty Dog was of her. As soon as anyone new came into the house, Satty Dog would run to Dulcie's side, as if guarding her, then growl and bark at the strangers if they got too close to her. Eventually, one day Dulcie told her parents that she was bringing a young man to meet them by the name of Robert. John and his wife Mary kind of knew that the young man was not just a friend, but they said nothing, and as for Satty Dog, they fully expected that she would subject Robert to a proper barking tirade if he got too close to Dulcie. Late on a Sunday afternoon, Dulcie arrived home with Rob by her side. Satty Dog ran up to her and jumped up, licking Dulcie's hand. Then, to everyone's absolute astonishment, she did the same to Rob. It was as if she innately knew he was to be trusted with Dulcie. After that, Satty Dog and Rob were also pals, and John and Mary always said that it was Satty that had picked the boyfriend. As she had woofed like a wild thing at all Dulcie's other friends visiting the house, in a way she had. Later the following year, Dulcie and Robert were married. It was 1997, and in the meantime, John had published his book entitled Psychic Pets with Bloomsbury Books. Following the publication, he was asked to appear on numerous TV shows promoting the book. Dulcie allowed him to take Satty Dog along to these interviews, as she was one of the star pets, the little Scottish terrier who featured in her own story. Satty Dog and Dulcie Jane, the dog that picked the boyfriend. Satty Dog patiently accompanied John on over 30 minutes of prime TV on Richard and Judy's This Morning, thus bringing a lot of joy and good feelings. John related that sadly, as time passed, Satty Dog became older and gradually confused. Her health finally failed, and one dark day the decision had to be made to place their friend beyond the pain of a physical reality that had become too much to bear. John called for the vet and asked Mary if she would prepare a grave in the garden near to where Satty Dog had enjoyed so many happy hours playing with her pal Dulcie Jane and their other pet Grumbles the bulldog. John was sitting with Satty Dog talking to her about the time they were once almost famous together, and she sat still looking up and absolutely trusting him. Then John heard a call from Mary in the garden. She was shouting to him that he should come and look and help a bird that had been injured. John went outside and saw a blackbird standing still on the flagstones near the open grave. He noticed the bird seemed unafraid of him, which is unusual for a wild creature. But it was also clear that it was not injured. After the vet had completed his duty and John held the now lifeless body of his little pal Satty Dog, he handed her to Mary, who took her out and placed her into the grave. Gently they covered her in the earth and then stood quietly recalling the many happy days they had all shared and the time not so long ago when she had welcomed Rob into their home. Then, much to their astonishment, the blackbird that Mary had thought was injured hopped across the ground and stood at the edge of Satty Dog's grave. It was within just a few feet of them and looked directly at John, then paused. As he watched in amazement, the bird flew straight up into the sky and disappeared into the blue. It was as if the bird had come to collect the soul of their friend Sutty Dog. The startling sequel to this story happened some time later. John related that a few weeks ago Mary told him he needed a haircut, as his long grey locks were, she said, a right mess. To show him what she meant, Mary took a photograph of him sitting at his computer to let him see how long his hair had grown. When John opened the picture file on his computer, both Mary and he were startled to see that instead of viewing John's messed up hair, they were looking at Satty Dog. John sent us the photograph, which he vows is 100% an image of their pet Satty Dog. It was as if she had returned and materialised in a photograph, as if she was sitting on his shoulder. He knew that Satty Dog had come to see him for a reason. She was his friend as well. Peaches. Aidan Short Gallimore has written about an odd series of events involving a pet dog named Peaches. Events described as unexplainably strange and paranormal by a family historian. He lives in Runcorn, Merseyside, Cheshire, in the northwest of England. His account took place over 40 years ago, in 1980, and involves his maternal great-grandparents, whom he never met, and their beloved and devoted pooch. Sissy and Harold Short both died in 1980, within a short space of time of each other. The story told to Aidan by family historian Karen Brown is that Sissy died of natural causes on the 24th of October 1980, preempting a harrowing time for Harold as he had lost his soulmate. Brown also found out that a few months later, Harold, while visiting Sissy's gravesite in Helton Village Cemetery, passed away unexpectedly there where she had been buried on the 11th of December 1980. Subsequently, Harold was interred at the same location where he and Sissy share a gravestone. With the loss of both of her owners within less than 2 months of each other, the Shorts' dog Peaches was taken in by another couple. Thus emerges the very strange aspect of this story. Aidan found out that Peaches unexpectedly ran away and then was found to have also passed away at the graveside of Sissy and Harold. Peaches is thereby honoured by having her name emblazoned on the family headstone. The story is astonishing not only because Peaches was somehow able to locate where her owners were buried, but also because she somehow willed herself to join them on the other side. The loyal and devoted dog was finally reunited with her loved ones. Fortuitously, Aidan met the genealogist Karen Brown when they were both out shopping in October 2023. He describes her as a scholar on his maternal family history and says that she is also his biological mother's best friend. She seemed convinced that the events, which she called unexplainably strange, were not just a case of Peaches dying of a broken heart, but also had a paranormal dimension. Aidan still feels perplexed by what he calls the bizarre unfolding of events. Rocky. Anne, from near Queanbeyan in New South Wales, Australia, shared a very creepy experience in which she was surprised by the reaction of her normally very placid dog. She related that about 4 years ago she was taking her old golden retriever named Rocky for his daily afternoon walk. They would always take the same route every day through the Queanbeyan Lawn Cemetery, which is relatively recent and harbours absolutely no bad ambience or eerie feeling. Anne had always found it well maintained and a pleasure to walk through. The older part of the cemetery was starting to become quite full by then, and at the time of this walk, a new section of lawn had a gazebo erected and a few trees planted in readiness for incorporating some new graves. A small number of grave sites had already been dug and filled in following recent burials, so walking past, she had a clear view of the whole area. As Anne arrived at the end of the road, a young man came walking towards this new part of the cemetery. He was on Anne's right, and she normally wouldn't have taken much notice of him except for the outlandishly outdated way he was dressed. He was wearing 70s style clothing and had a definitely much older style of haircut. The youth had his head down and was looking towards the ground as he walked. As she got closer, Anne guessed that he looked about 23 years of age. It was the reaction of Anne's dog that seemed the most bizarre. She says that her laid-back dog normally couldn't care less about anything or anyone. Loved by all who knew him, he had a very gentle nature and definitely no tendencies for anger or aggression. However, today her old Goldie Rocky seemed alerted and very intrigued by the young passer-by, so much so that his back bristles stood up on end, something she had never seen him do in all his 10 years. Anne kept on walking, but as soon as the young man had walked past, she looked around to see which new grave he was visiting. She was shocked to see that he truly had vanished. There was absolutely no sign of him. In front of the graves was just a barbed wire fence to separate the cemetery from the main road, so all around her was very visible. There was definitively nowhere the young man could have gone without her seeing him. She noted at the time that Rocky seemed so spooked by the man, sensing that something was different, that he had never even wanted to keep looking as to what was behind him. To this day, Anne thinks of this phantom youth and wonders who he was and why he was there.